Well, welcome everybody. I feel so honored to be here and honored that you are all taking this beautiful hour to hear a few words from me. So I'm going to start us with a grounding meditation, and then when we are finished, I would love for everybody to take a minute to introduce themselves. Okay, so any way you would like to participate is welcome. You can close your eyes or not, or stand up or lay down. It's all up to you. I am feeling very calm right now. My breath is slow and even. As I sit, I feel my feet connected to the earth with 26 bones in each foot. I am grateful for the work my feet do to hold and transport my body through this world. My feet are my friends, and I can count on my feet. They are a great resource to me. My 4 gluteal muscles support me in my chair. These thick, strong, striated muscles connect my back body of 18 muscles to my legs with 20 muscles that help me walk, crawl, and dance. They support my torso and help me have a strong, upright body. I am grateful for my heart and lungs. My heart beats on its own and is my good friend. Thank you for consistently being there for me and keeping me alive. I am grateful for my lungs as they work all day and all night, turning oxygen into nutrients for my blood, bones, and brain. My heart and lungs are perhaps my greatest resources. They are very dependable. Thank you, throat, neck, and mouth, for helping me use language to speak my truth and advocate for my needs. Thank you, enteric nervous system, or gut brain, my stomach, liver, pancreas, and intestines, for transforming my food into energy that my entire body needs, especially my brain. Thank you for releasing serotonin, for helping me feel pleasure. Thank you, cranium skull, for protecting my brain, which helps me survive, think, plan, and carry out activities. Thank you, nervous system, for being my alarm system and watching out for my safety, and also helping me feel calm. Thank you, endocrine system, for creating the right combination of hormones so that all my systems work together in keeping my immune system strong, which reduces inflammation. This results in feeling calm and loving with oxytocin and allows me to sleep well. Thank you, melatonin. I'm grateful that my body has its own intelligence and I do not have to do anything to keep it running. I'm grateful that my body and mind work together to maintain homeostasis through calm breath and steady heart, which is coherence. I feel safe inside my body because I am friends with my body and I know how to meet my own needs. I can form healthy relationships with people, care for them, and feel love. If my body feels discomfort, I will listen to it. If my body needs to get up and move, I will listen. If my body needs to rest, I will meet its needs, for it is my greatest resource. I am grateful for my body where land meets sea and being part of the high and low tides of this inner space. I'm just going to talk and share what's really exciting for me, what I've been learning in this last year. I've been just fascinated by our bodies and specifically our nervous system, but please just interject. I would love any comments that you have. So I have been giving these workshops on the nervous system. And I have a few photos from the Bodies exhibit down in San Jose, California. And I think they're really important to bring into this conversation because for us to be aware of them, you know, we can't see our back body unless you're looking in the mirror, unless you have a really twisty neck or some kind of photo. And so we don't really know what our back body looks like. So we have a front body and anatomy. We call it the ventral or front body and dorsal or back body. And they do work in unison. So the front of our body, our muscles work together, symmetrical with our back body muscles for all of this locomoting, for us to move and, you know, think about all of the things your body does, right? Picking things up and stretching and opening doors. It's just fascinating that they all work together. There's nothing that works in isolation. And I think that's so pivotal and metaphoric for us. So as we were looking, feeling grounding into our chairs, there's some of our gluteal muscles. This one is a little strange because it's plastinization process. And so some of the muscles are pulled apart. So you can see the big gluteal muscles that are actually apart off of the side to the side of the body. But you have all of those underneath, the big gluteal ones. And then also your organs, I think is really important because our nervous system is about half of our nervous system, or if not more, is our gut or our enteric nervous system. And that's basically all the organs. And I have them over here just so you can see how long our intestines are and that they are secreting serotonin. 90% of what our body needs for serotonin-wise comes from our gut. And that is just blows me away all the time, that we always think our nervous system is our brain. And that is a huge part of it. It's kind of like the satellite up in the stars is your brain, but the rest of the planet, the rest of your body is working hard and in unison to pump out these chemicals, these neurochemicals throughout your body which dictate our emotions, our joy, our pain, our relationships. And so when we talk about them so abstractly, I love it, but I just got really interested in what is happening in our bodies.
I just want to ask you, doesn't that happen both ways?
Yes, it's a two-way. Thank you.
In other words,
so again, I am not an expert and I'm just skimming. So I'm leaving out a lot of details.
Well,
so
I was more curious than anything because I know immediately when I'm going through stuff what happens in my gut, you know?
Yes. Yes, it's very bidirectional. Thank you, Philip. They're constantly talking to each other. And most of that is through the vagus nerve. I do have a picture of that. I'm almost there, but these are just magnificent structures that are working on their own. We don't have to do anything. Here is the central nervous system. Remember, there's a peripheral nervous system too. So this is just the central, and all of these nerves come out through each vertebrae. And so all the bones have been removed, which is fascinating. And you can see down the spinal cord that there are nerves that are exiting the spinal cord, but just imagine vertebrae in between. The vertebrae are housing these nerves, so they're protecting them. And then they have these intervertebral discs in between that cushion and allow the spine to actually be your backbone and support you in movement. But their main job is to protect these nerves, because this is the relay system from your brain to your peripheral nervous system, which is your appendages. And this is all electric. So that's what's fascinating to me, is that there are these electric signals, which travel through plasma and travel through water and travel through myelinated sheaths and, all of these. But remember, 75% of our body is water. And so like our brain is encased in water, and most of these spines, these nerves need water around them for these electric signals to move so fast. So again, I don't want to bore you or give you a lecture, but I have to give you a little bit of foundation of the basic nervous system. And you probably already know this, but we're trying to move towards how our nervous system helps us engage socially through the social engagement theory. So I'll just give you a really quick rundown. Let me go back to this slide, because right here, the functions of the nervous system actually coordinates all activities of the body. So sometimes we think, oh, it's just our nerves, or we're nervous, or it's just part of our system. But because the brain is the central part of the nervous system, it coordinates, the brain releases many hormones that coordinate all of our systems, the respiratory system, the circulatory system, the muscular. All of those have their own hormones that are coordinating them together, which is, again, just fascinating. It's a miracle, right? How would they all talk to each other? And the second the second task is to respond and adapt to changes. And this is what's fascinating, is that through neuroplasticity, our nervous systems have to change. They cannot stay. And that's what evolution is all about, is that it's constantly being evaluated, the internal system and the external environment. So the nervous system begins with the sensory input. So think about your 5 senses. Think about when you first arrived on camera. And camera is hard, right? Because we don't get the cues, the gestures and the facial cues, which I'm going to talk about. Or think about anywhere you arrive new, right? Your body is consistently taking in all sensory stimuli, everything, through your ears, what you hear, your eyes, what you see, your nose, what you smell, your mouth, it's a taste, but it's also about pressure and heat. And here I have them right here. Temperature, pressure, pain, chemicals. So in our environment, sometimes there's chemicals, light, the amount of light that's coming in, and our skin. Our skin is our largest organ, which is our main, I know I keep saying main, there's so many main parts of our nervous system: our brain, our gut, and our skin. So those are what you can think of. Our skin is constantly, there's so many nerve receptors in our skin, and we're constantly assessing the environment. And this is sending data to our thalamus. So the thalamus you can think of as mission control. And so all of these senses are going into the thalamus. And there's one question that it asks. And again, I'm simplifying it. Am I safe? Does all of this information that I am assessing, do I feel safe? And this, again, could be, 5-year doctoral program of what's happening. And really, we don't know. That's the other thing that's so great, is that nobody really knows. So then there's the hippocampus, which is the thalamus is recruiting the hippocampus, and it's a filing system, and it's of all of our past experiences. So as we, from the womb, or when you determine that consciousness occurs in a body, your brain is recording through this hippocampus. Actually, it's about, I think it's about 2 months old of our infant development in embryology, that the hippocampus is fully formed. But the hippocampus is recording these experiences. And so as we're taking in this information from our environment, the hippocampus is scanning it for our brain, you've heard, is a pattern detector. That's what's happening, is that the hippocampus saying, have I experienced this before? Have I smelt this before? Have I seen this before? Have I seen it before? And so, like, for example, you're listening to my voice and your hippocampus is scanning very, 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 very fast if you want to trust me or not. And through the social engagement or polyvagal theory says that it's mostly voice through prosody. So your brain and hippocampus is deciding, am I safe? Are you going to trust me? And this is mostly through my voice, which is crazy, right? And a lot of that goes back to our parent or our main caregiver, what kind of voice and prosody that they exhibited, and what kind of bond. It's all about bonding. Like right now, I'm giving you bonding cues, and you're either taking them up or not, depending. And a lot of this is that hippocampus. So it's, am I safe? If you are not safe, there's an alarm. It actually goes to the pituitary gland, all this information. And this is where people don't really know how fast and where, because it probably all works together. But it can send an alarm to the amygdala, or if you do feel yes, up to the neocortex and or the pituitary gland. And the pituitary gland is the master gland, and it's making these chemical cocktails that are sent through this vagus nerve to all of our body, to our organs. First, remember along that, I'll show you the vagus nerve. Right here. And you can see it starts way up in our mouth and our ears. And I've seen an anatomist dissect a body and see this vagus nerve, and it starts, it wraps around our ears and starts, I don't remember the name, but it's way up at the base of our brain. So it's right between the mammalian and the reptilian brain, and then it just starts going down our bodies. And so I'm going to kind of stop there, because I know that's a lot of information. And we can just reflect on, what happens if you feel safe. Your vagus nerve and your parasympathetic nervous system lets your lungs go and allows you to take deep breaths. A lot of times we think we're in control of our breath, but we're not always in control of any of this autonomic nervous system. So if you don't feel safe, right, what is happening? Your eyes, and you can see this visual, or you can just chime in. What does your body feel like when you feel unsafe?
We can sweat.
Mm-hmm. We can sweat. And that's so interesting that you bring that up, Young Hee, because what's happening is your heart is pumping so fast that your body temperature is rising, and sweat is trying to cool your body off. So it's your body is taking care of itself. So when your heart beats faster, your temperature rises, even if it's just like a half a degree, and your body is taking care of and saying, oh, I better produce sweat to cool this body off because we're all built for survival and we're not going to sweat and die. We're going to, the body, and you remember, we're not making any of these conscious decisions. What else do you feel when you feel nervous or threatened?
Like a tightness.
Where do you feel the tightness?
Maybe in the throat.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so go back, see this, the green is going around the pharynx and the larynx. So your throat does constrict. So that's what a lot of these chemicals are doing, is causing constriction and causing oxygen to decrease. So that's often why we feel this tunnel vision or this pounding of brain, because we're losing oxygen. Our chest is constricting, our lungs are constricting. And so we're used to, our body is so efficient that it usually gives oxygen all the way through the body. But when these stress chemicals occur, we lose oxygen. Anybody else?
We tremble.
Tremble.
Or shallower breathing.
Yeah. And a lot of that is, again, because of that lack of oxygen. And our body's innate desire to shake. If you read Peter Levine's work on his work on trauma, he talks about the animal kingdom, that they shake their stress hormones out of their muscles and their guts, and then they're able to move on after they've been chased and not eaten. And so that he talks about the body shakes and trembles because it's trying to go back to homeostasis, and it needs to shake and tremble a lot of those stress hormones out. Remember, those stress hormones are causing these reactions of immobilizing your muscles to either run. So it's sending these chemicals out to your muscles. Acetylcholine goes out to your muscles to engage your muscles to run. Or if you're in a place where you couldn't run, or especially in childhood, if you weren't able to run, then you go into freeze, and your body slows down. So that's what's, again, interesting, is people think that everything always speeds up when you're stressed. But for some people, depending on their infant and childhood development, if they were not able to leave the situation during trauma, their body slows down so that they can hide and or freeze. And so again, the body is so efficient that it slows the heart down, so that this is all about survival.
Would you go back and say what you said about childhood and its effect on slowing?
Yeah. So as these stress hormones are being pumped through our bodies, the different hormones are either mobilizing our muscles to run. If we learned that we could run out of a situation, engage the muscles, the acetylcholine engages the muscle, all the blood goes to your muscles, and you can run. That's why some people can lift up cars when they have their babies under the car, is because our system is so efficient that all of these stress hormones mobilize our muscles. But again, it's how you were as a young child. So if you were as a young child in a situation like maybe orphanages or in traumatic situations where you were locked in a room, or something where you were not able to run, that your your body slows down. Your stress response is to slow the heart rate and slow the lungs and slow the oxygen so that you are able to hide and or freeze and still live. Because if you were, if your heart and everything was going so fast and you couldn't run, it's in an inefficient system because you might explode or die or something. So your body knows to slow down if there's nowhere to go. So it's just a very, very efficient system. I know it's big and it's heavy, right? It's a big topic, but thank you for sitting with some basic foundations. So the polyvagal theory is all about safety and co-regulation. So Stephen Porges is a medical doctor who writes all about this vagus nerve that runs through your body. And why he calls it polyvagal is because of those states: fight, flight, freeze, fawn. Fawn means like pretending. So that your vagus nerve is allowing these 4 states to happen. So your vagus nerve, your vagal tone changes in all of these situations. But it's also called social engagement theory. And so I'll just read this bottom bullet. A resilient person can co-regulate physiological states with a safe and trusted other. This occurs when the other person projects positive cues regarding their autonomic state through prosodic voice, warm, welcoming facial expressions, and gestures of accessibility. This also allows vocalizations and facial expressions to serve as cues of safety or threat to others. Together, these pathways connect behavior to the nervous system and form the basis for social communication, cooperation, and connectedness. So, like we talk about this, like, oh, let's trust each other. Let's do teamwork. Let's work, we hear it all over schools, everywhere about working together, right? But what I found fascinating about this is about this co-regulation piece of this constant evaluation with this neural evaluation of risk with each other. And it goes through our whole lives. And he also talks about how even when you are with a trusted person, your nervous system is still assessing risk. So, you might be with a partner or a sibling or a child 10 years, but you're still assessing, is this person going to change on me? But that has to do with vulnerability and how activated your nervous system has been through its life. But it's just, I would love to open this up about how you feel. The term is co-regulation with an other, when you might feel dysregulated, which means your autonomic nervous system, that's what we're talking about, the heartbeat, everything that's happening on its own, that's called autonomic.
Oh,
You might feel, oh, I'm sorry, what?
Go ahead.
Philip.
Oh,
I was just
it's not a response to that.
Yeah.
It's more a the view from 20,000 feet, and this is incredible knowledge. I wish that it was part of every high school biology course, knowing this and being able to do something with it. In what ways do you work with people to help them acknowledge this and remedy it?
Well, that's $1 million question, Philip, right? Because it's so complicated, Philip, that I could be giving all of these prosody, you know, my syntax and my pitch and my prosody and my gestures could be what I view as welcoming. But based on your nervous system, you could actually be misinterpreting these cues of safety and think that I'm still unsafe. So that's what's fascinating, is that our nervous system can misread cues of safety. And so, you know, in our schools and our houses, we can have all these, you know, low lighting and safe places and, you know, plants and things that we think are calming to our nervous systems, but we don't know what autonomic state our students or our friends are in, they might misread them as unsafe. So it's a lot, you know, there's a lot of work right now with people with autism, because sometimes this work affects many people with autism because of the eye gaze and the lack of facial recognition with, you know, our face. This is basically about our face and our voice, because as an infant, especially in the womb, our brain patterns and our hormones started producing these safe zones based on our caregiver. And so really, even as adults, our hippocampus is still like, how much is this person like my caregiver? And sometimes their caregiver was unsafe. So that's where it gets really tricky, where the mixed messages come in, and, you know, it just takes a lot of work, individual work, that it's hard to say, this is what's gonna work for everybody.
Megan, I wonder, you know, I know you work some with oncology folks, a place where you know, mortality is really where it's unsafe, right? I mean, there's so much going on, and especially maybe your work in the water, and I wonder what you've seen in terms of you know, trying to reset, if there's such a thing, or unwind some of those early responsive patterns, whether you've seen success with that.
Yes, I have. Well, the water is amazing, and I don't want to spend too much time, but when somebody goes into the water, which is 96 degrees and it's the same temperature as our body, that our brain is able to go into a theta brain state, which is kind of like meditation. It can go fast because there's a sensory deprivation. So remember thinking about our nervous system. It's constantly taking in environmental stimuli. If you can if you can take away some of that stimuli, the eyes, even the ears, you know, even without the water, right? If you feel overwhelmed, a lot of times if you just close your eyes, that can decrease that stimuli quite a bit. And even if you can close your eyes and ears, that's even better. But what the water does is it talks to our bodies, because it was the first place we did feel safe. And so our cells actually remember that. Our cells remember that book, The Body Keeps the Score. The body records when it feels safe. And so there's cellular memory of being safe in the womb. And so that's what it happens in the water, is that bodies, all ages, if you're able, my work and others, but again, you know, there has to be intention. It goes back to pre-verbal states, which is really important because there is no talking. And so there's no, the nervous system doesn't have to read faces, doesn't have to listen to voices. So it's like the mind moves aside and then the body can remember feeling safe. And so it actually is a reset. And because the lack of gravity too, allows the nervous system to totally, it doesn't have to be interpreting the external environment. So it's able to do a reset. It's pretty fascinating.
Me
Yeah.
myself have a lot of questions. Like listen to you talk a long time. So like when you right now, do I feel safe? That's like a continuum or like a, isn't it? I mean, like I'm not afraid that a bear is going to come and get me, but I might have, let's see, what might I be afraid of right now? I don't know, but you have different kinds of fears, like monsters or bears, or somebody saying something mean to you. That's another. I recall in the classroom telling children, well, it's a big part of my job to keep you safe. And I don't think they really understood what I was saying. And I wondered if you talked to a child and said, do you feel safe? I think that they would almost draw a blank and like, well, let's see, do I feel safe? And they don't know about those, and they would probably think of monsters or wild animals, but not in terms of somebody's going to be mean to me or. I don't even know what my question is here. It's just when you're working with children and you talk about safety, like, would you ask a child, do you feel safe? And what could you garner from their answer?
It's very complicated, and I'm not a psychotherapist, so I don't really know. I mean, that would be hopefully my next step is to be able to articulate this into the classroom and into some curriculum. And Andrea asked me, so many people after my seminar came and asked me, how do you implement this in the classroom? And it's just so I don't know yet. Because with one teacher and 25 kids, everybody's nervous system is operating on their own unique chemical cocktails. And so it's very, very difficult to say. And that's what's happening right now with all these trauma-informed care approaches and movements is schools are adopting, okay, we're going to do this. And why are they having such low success rate? It's because one size does not fit all. But I think there's a way of getting away from the word safe, because I also think it's overused, and I think that everybody's definition of safety is different. It's really working with kids are interpreting their current experiences based on their past experiences, and so are we. And so there has to be a way that we can either disrupt that, although that's the way the human brain works. I think that's what happens during meditation, though. I think what happens is with the breath, you're able to short circuit that hippocampus where you're not, and I don't know if this is true, but where you're not comparing all this stimuli to past experiences and saying, am I safe? Am I safe? Because that's really what the hippocampus is doing, is it's comparing your experience, and we don't know it's happening, right? But I think there's a way of using language of, and I haven't thought this through, but, this is a safe, trusted adult. But again, that student has to decide that unless they trust me. So a lot of it's building trust, and for them to trust me because they can co-regulate with me. So it's really about co-regulation. If I am my autonomic nervous system is regulated in homeostasis and I can co-regulate others, they will trust me. But that doesn't mean that I can say, oh, this other person is a safe, trusted adult, because they have to go through co-regulation with that person too. So it's that's why, we always hear you have to do your own work. It's hard, right? We want to short circuit it and say, let's do this trauma-informed approach. And that I'm doing research with a lot of teachers. I'm analyzing data from like 150,000 teachers right now, and they all don't feel safe. So how can teachers be co-regulating their students if they can't regulate themselves and they're not regulating each other? So the staff within the schools don't feel safe with each other. And so that's a really, really hard situation. They don't feel safe with their admin, and they're using these words, I don't feel safe, but a lot of that is because of COVID fallout. Oh, and another piece I forgot to mention is that the nervous system is also interpreting data from internal states. So if you have any kind of physical health challenge, even fatigue, colors or changes your interpretation of the external stimuli. So they working together, your internal states with the environmental stimuli. So that's another thing, again, so complicated, right? So I'll give you an example. Right now I have a really bad tooth. I need a root canal. And so my nervous system is activated. And so I cannot be 100% present with you and really listen and engage and co-regulate with you because my internal state is dysregulated. So it's really about our own work, how we develop ourselves, and how we, when you talk about presence, that's what we're talking about, is that you're able to you can use any word you want, maintain homeostasis, but it's this internal and external regulation that's happening to your nervous system.
I don't know if you can co-regulate with your tooth or not. Maybe that's too much to ask. But hey, I got two thoughts. One of them is the co-regulation. Of course, isn't only between ourselves as an adult and the child, but between the child and child. And so often when, to create an environment where kindness and compassion and inviting, so forth, so that often, we find an ally whom we can sync up with, and that often sort of diffuses the responsibility just of creating the space rather than having the kids to sync up in a single. Anyway, that's one thing. But the other thing I wonder, and it's maybe another, I'm trying to understand, there's a new book by Jonathan Haidt called The Anxious Generation, and he's making a case basically that he's a social psychologist, making a case basically that this generation has been raised not as a play-based, development, and again, going beyond the initial sort of syncing and bonding and that we have with caregivers, but you go a little further than that. It's not a play-based anymore. From 2005 or so on, it's become basically a phone-based childhood. So that the result of this excessive screen time and so forth is this constant kind of having to respond, having to be overwhelmed. And so it's a nice, although he doesn't pick it up this way, it's a nice description of what you've been just talking about. And that is this sort of chronic overwhelm that results in low grade or medium grade or high grade anxiety, and that we see often in university students. And of course, one of the other sides of that is depression as well. So I just wonder how all that sort of fits together in a practical way.
Right, because we're losing that face-to-face. We don't realize how important that co-regulation is with another. And so if you're just getting it on the screen or on your phone, you're not being co-regulated. And we as a community need each other. We need to co-regulate. And that's actually the last stage of the stress cycle completion, is when, you know, you have all these stress hormones and you try to get rid of them by exercise and running, and then by yourself and reflection. Then you have to go and co-regulate with someone. So to complete the whole cycle, you need somebody else to witness you. That's what's fascinating to me, is that because you need to replace the cortisol and the adrenaline with dopamine and serotonin. So that's what's happening. But in order for it to totally level out, you need the oxytocin. So you have to co-regulate with another after a stress event. And I think that's what's missing, is that you can try to get the stress hormones released and some dopamine and some serotonin, some feel good, but if you don't co-regulate, the stress cycle is never completed. So then your nervous system is always on high alert. I know you've been having your hand up, and I know our time.
Yeah, there's so
over.
many things I wanted to share. Recently I became a HeartMath trainer, and then there was so much interesting information out there. So for example, like co-regulate part, like when one person is not regulated and then the other three are, then the fourth person doesn't do anything becomes coherent, so
Yes.
it is
Yes.
going back to, it was like confirming what we've been talking about in holistic education. Is really amazing thing, like you said, teaching from the presence, that's exactly it. And then connecting with others to hold the space together. Or, there is a Sarah Payton, I think the neuroscientist, who said, we were always asking ourselves from 12 to 100 times per second, am I safe? Do I matter? Am I safe? Do I matter? That's like a resonating self. I think that's the name of the book. So how important it is to come back to, like what you said at the beginning, Megan, to really go into our body or to be here. But at the same time, if they have the traumas in the past, it's really difficult. I was invited to do the gong meditation at one of the outpatient mental clinic. And then, the breathing. And I thought, wow, I don't want to stir everybody's feelings. So I was really quiet at the beginning to be really conventional about it. Then in the end, just a little bit, bigger. And then one student came back and said, you know what? I actually like the banging of it. I felt so refreshed. And I'm like, I have no idea what is really good for each person. So, like coming back, gosh, we have to be really teaching from the presence, but at the same time, paying attention to each individual's differences. But then at the same time, positive childhood experience can really alter ACEs too. So there's also the research too. But anyway, so I was really inspired by all
But
the
there's good news, because the idea, the theory of neuroplasticity, where you can wire your brain, you can make new connections through repeated, safe, positive experiences. So there is a promise. There's a great promise of replacing, because remember, those old memories can diminish if you're making new neural connections. But, it takes a long time and a lot of repetition, maybe changing the environment, those things. But yeah, if we all do our own work, that's what is a big new aha to me is, I think, oh, I have to help all these other people. But if I'm dysregulated, I can't help any of them. And so that's the message I'm trying to give to everybody, when they ask. It's like, well, do your own work. do your meditation, do your yoga, do your running and swimming and, and co-regulating with others, then come into the classroom. That's the best way you can help students. So thank you.
Can I just quickly share an experience? It's been like bubbling so much, and I know we're over time. But one of my most profound experiences recently was I was working with a friend, and we were kind of grieving, and we were angry together. And like we moved over to the goats because the goats needed to get fed, and we started to feed the goats. And there was some magic that happened that I'm still kind of processing. Was somehow these goats, like through maybe their ease of their system, help to regulate us. And it's like it transformed the grief, the anger, whatever, I mean, these strong emotions so well. Like I was so blown away by and I mean, I can't think of anything that was really different about the situation than just processing emotions next to goats who were joyfully eating grass or grain or whatever it was. Yeah.
You're the goat.
I saw one of the episodes that not only dogs but goats and even other animals can really help regulation of children with special needs and some behavioral issues in classrooms. So I can believe now goats.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you so much. I really appreciate you being here and listening and engaging and stay in touch and we'll keep this discussion going.
Thanks so much, Megan. That was amazing.
Thank you, Megan.
You are
Appreciate you all.
Bye.
Thank you, Megan.
Thank you,
Thank
Megan.
you.
Thank you, Andrea, Camden.